Hey, what's going on, Giants fans? Welcome to the latest episode of our Talk is Cheap podcast from NJ Advanced Media, the Star Ledger, and NJ.com. Here Tuesday, June the 20th in the morning, the day before the first day of summer. As we get ready, we'll recap spring practices. We're obviously going to talk about the Saquon Barkley saga, and we will look ahead to training camp. So it's Daryl Slater here with you, Bob Brookover on the other side. Bob, how you doing?
All right, Daryl, how are you? Doing well.
All right. Yeah. So I guess we can just start before we get into where things stand with what we think about the spring, how it all went, and looking ahead to training camp. We'll just dive right into the Saquon Barkley situation. And so nothing has really changed. So they tagged him, and they're still in a standoff. They have until July 17th to work out the long term deal. Otherwise, it's he can only play in a 1 year contract. And we'll get into some of the particulars of it, but we still don't know the guaranteed money. We know that Saquon Barkley is frustrated. He has not ruled out sitting out the season, which I don't think is going to happen. Pretty much no way that happens. Maybe he stays away for some at training camp. We'll see. Again, he's not under contract, so he can't be fined for doing that. So it's all the same stuff, really. The only main new thing is that he went out publicly. Saquon Barkley did express his frustration, said he would, he would sit out the season. Basically, is essentially what he said. We still don't know the guaranteed money on these supposedly disrespectful offers from the Giants. Uh, Read into that what you will. I think if the guaranteed money offer was really disrespectful, we'd have known it by now via a leak from Saquon Barkley's agent. But yeah, it's a tough position for Saquon Barkley to be in. But to me, he could have avoided this. He and his agent, they overshot this thing, and now he has to deal with it. And so that's where I stand on it. What do you think?
Yeah, as you pointed out in the opening, tomorrow is the first day of summer, which means this will now have extended from winter into summer, which I don't know if we expected that, but we probably did, given the situation. It was pretty clear early on that Saquon was not happy about this. He's just recently made it known at his camp in Jersey City exactly how unhappy he is about it and what he is unhappy about. But he did not, given a chance to say, "Hey, here's what the guaranteed money they really is," or tell us the real details. He just chose to say, "I'm not happy about leaks," and he feels disrespected. He felt like the leaks made him look greedy. I don't know how any of that's the case, but basically, nothing has changed since the moment they put the tag on him. They're still far away from a deal. Um, and how they come to a deal, the Giants don't really have to do anything. You know, but they run the risk of having a very unhappy Saquon showing up for training camp if and when he does sign the tag. Um, I talked to a former head coach in the league the other yesterday, and he was saying basically he thinks this will all go away once Saquon steps on the field because he's a professional, and his belief is players once they get focused on the game, uh, put this stuff behind them, and that they're so used to these kinds of contract things that they all have to deal. All the really good players in this league will have their contract moments. Um, so we'll see. But as of right now, another day is being ripped off the calendar and closer to that July 17th deadline, and it's unresolved.
And I would be surprised if if he gets a long term deal. I think it's going to be much closer to that July 17th deadline than we are right now. That's usually how these things work with franchise tag players. Obviously, the tag this year is worth 10.1. The tag next year would be worth 12.1, which is a total of 22.2. So really, that's the guaranteed money, and that has been the guaranteed money negotiating floor for this situation. So if you look at the other running backs on the top of the league in terms of practically guaranteed money, the other veteran running backs, Christian McCaffrey's at 38, Kamara's at 33, and then Derrick Henry's 25, Nick Chubb's 20. So if they offer him Derrick Henry money, or they have been offering him Derrick Henry money 25.5 or 26, okay. I mean, I guess it is a reasonable offer. It's not much more than the two tags combined. So to me, the practically guaranteed money window is got to be somewhere between the 25 and maybe 30 or low 30s. I'm just theorizing here. Maybe he was aiming for low 30s, 32, 31, 30 Camara level, well north of Derrick Henry. And they said, no, we're going to, we'll cap it maybe at 26, 27. And yeah, I mean, if you're Barkley and you're only going to be practically guaranteed what 4 or 5 million more than what the two tags would be, I could see how that would be frustrating. Obviously, there has to be there. If he's not looking to be the highest paid running back in the NFL, as he insisted, the window here is that window. It's really 23 million or maybe 24 to 30, right? So they have to find somewhere in there in terms of the practically guaranteed money. And maybe he wants north of 30, but it's just not realistic. If it ever was realistic, it's definitely not now. And so, yeah, so that's where things stand. And I don't think, if I had to predict what would happen, if he does not get a long term deal, I think he'll probably stay away for a week or so in camp and then come around. Uh, I don't think he's going to skip a lot of camp. It wouldn't make sense. I mean, it's not really a holdout because there's nothing he's necessarily holding out for, and we can get into that some more in a little bit. So you'll see it being referred to as a holdout. It's not a holdout. It would be a protest because he's frustrated. Um, and I get it. And he has every right to, I mean, there's nothing wrong with a player being greedy. So he's objecting to being framed as greedy. Like, dude, that's fine, man. Like, ask for all the money you want. The notion that an athlete should be crucified for being quote unquote greedy is insane. Like, these guys have a small earning window. He plays a brutal position physically, right? So, like, okay, listen, that's not an issue. Like, no one with any common sense is like faulting you for wanting money. Like that to me, that's not an issue. It's more of the line of like they didn't really handle this logically. Maybe he and his agent didn't think that Daniel Jones would get the long term deal, right? And then there they were. They got the deal done, and then Barkley was trapped with the tag.
Yeah, I mean the um, that's the whole thing is that he's been tagged and there's nothing he can really do about it. I guess the one thing he can hold out for, I don't know if you can, there's a semantics to it, but is to be released. There have been players who I was when I covered the Eagles going back about 18 years. Corey Simon was tagged, not happy about it, didn't show up at the OTAs, didn't show up for the start of training camp, and they got 10 days into training camp, 15 days into training camp, and the Eagles liked the way, I forget who the replacement was for him. I think it was a rookie. It might even been Mike Patterson, who later played for the Giants. But they liked the way he was playing, and they said, you know what? We don't really need Corey Simon and his unhappy um, demeanor around here. And they released Corey. He signed with the Colts, and his career was pretty much over after that. And I don't see this as being the same situation because, the Giants have no desire to release Saquon Barkley. Really need him a lot more than the Eagles needed Corey Simon, although Corey Simon was a pretty good defensive tackle. And I don't think Saquon wants to be released. I think Saquon wants to play, and he wants to play for the Giants right now. His feelings are hurt. So, but that's really the only thing he could hold, protest for. You wanted to, when we were previously talking about how maybe there's some different ways they can do a 1-year deal if he does get to the July 17th mark, but it's just, I don't know. I really don't know how this is going to be resolved. And I am, um, I am very interested in seeing how it all unravels or unfolds, not unraveled. It's already unraveled, I guess, unfolds.
For sure. And I think the best course of action is clear for Saquon Barkley. I mean, he should take what he can get now. I don't think he should roll the dice on 10.1 million and go into the year and bet on himself, given the durability history and the nature of his position. Just take, if you can get, say it's 25 or whatever, practically guaranteed a signing, take that. Don't pass that up. And I think that's the most logical course of action. And he's a confident player who believes in himself. So to me, I would not be surprised if he just says, I'm going to go on the tag this year, and then we'll see where next year, what next year brings. He could potentially, quote unquote, hold out or stay away during camp, in order to get them to agree maybe to some kind of, not necessarily even perhaps binding agreement that he maybe, I guess they could put it in a contract that he would not be tagged next year. That would be an option for him if he wants to hit true free agency next year and is a little nervous about the fact that they could tag him again. The other thing is, when a player doesn't sign a long-term deal who's been tagged, the only restriction is that he plays the year on a 1-year deal, right? So he doesn't even have to be for the $10.1 million tag figure. And you're asking yourself, like, well, how does that work? Well, obviously, in almost all cases, I don't think you've ever seen this before, but like, either the guy gets the deal or he plays out the year on the tag figure on a 1-year deal, which I think those are obviously the two likeliest scenarios. If for whatever reason, Saquon and the Giants will come to an agreement where, say, he gets, like, for argument's sake, like 15 or $17 million in cash for this year. They could add some void years to the back end of a 1-year deal to spread out the cap hits, in terms of making a lot of that 17 a signing bonus. So that's how that would work in terms of spreading it out. So he wouldn't take on a 17 or $15 million cap hit this year. It would be less. It would be down below 10. But again, it's all about, you're still committing the cap space to him over time with the void years, and you're still committing the cash to him for like 1 year of him playing. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to do it that way unless you have serious cap issues, which the Giants really don't right now. So to me, I mean, Joe Shane has said flat out he's comfortable with Saquon playing out the year on the 1-year tag for 10, even though 10's a high number. So I don't think it would be that loophole situation that I just talked about there. But just to be clear, the only restriction is if a guy, doesn't get the deal by July 17th, is that he plays the year, or unless he skips the year, which he won't do, plays the year on a 1-year deal. Doesn't have to be for the tag figure. It can be more than that or less than that. It won't be less, obviously. But yeah, so there's that loophole that's worth keeping in the back of your mind. As far as whether he'd pull a Le'Veon Bell, no, it wouldn't make sense, and like, nor would skipping a lot of training camp, because he'd be entering a really important audition year, right? Like, I don't think skipping all the way into week 1 when you have a huge year coming up where you need to prove yourself is wise, right? I don't know where maybe he skips the first week of camp, which is kind of a BS week anyway. Maybe, right?
Yeah, I could see that happening, but going back to what you were saying about just like restructuring this deal and put void years in, and kicking the can down the road in terms of he's still going to have some cap hit into the future with Saquon. It just everything Joe Shane has said, it seems to go against that.
Yeah.
Leonard Williams is out there. I'm sure he would love to lower his cap hit if he could, but he also, Shane has been adamant that he doesn't want to keep, he wants to have this cap situation under control, specifically by year 3 of his tenure, which is next year. And he's been working toward that. And to do something like this, that would work against what he's been trying to do.
Great point. Very good context there, and I agree. It was, definitely worth bringing up as a hypothetical. I would be shocked if it happens. What do I think will happen? I said what he should do. What he should do is take the deal. And this whole notion that the Giants, and John Mara can't let this happen. Like, why? Like, I mean, I get that he's an important player. He's a really important player. He's one of the faces of the franchise. He's not a quarterback. He doesn't play a position that, yes, for the Giants, probably running back, and he is much more important than another team's prominent running back. But John Mara hired Joe Shane to do the job. I don't think there's going to be an interference factor here, saying like, okay, just cave and pay the guy. We don't want him frustrated. We don't want him unhappy. And like, call his bluff. He's not skipping the season. He's not going to skip the season. It's asinine. Like, come on. And yeah, I mean, we're all going to raise a big fuss if he's not there the first week of camp. Or to me, it becomes an issue if he's not there by like the second week of camp. Like, you got to show up at that point. If you're Barkley and the Giants do need him, they would need him. So yeah, it has potential to get ugly. But the notion that the Giants should just cave and John Mara should just cave because Barkley left the door open to do something that completely failed for Le'Veon Bell in 2018 when the running back market was way different. Like, come on, like it's foolish. So what
One
should the Go ahead.
one of the funny things I like of this offseason to me is so the highest paid back that got to free agents became Miles Sanders, and I think he got like 13 million guaranteed, which is just 3 million less than the tag, and that's over. I think his deal was like for 4 years, but 13 million guaranteed. Uh, and recently, I read a quote from Nick Sirianni. He lost his best back, and a guy who had a season just as good as Saquon's, arguably, maybe better, maybe even a little better last year. But Nick Sirianni's in OTAs right now saying, "I've never felt better. Basically, I've never felt better about our running back situation because they added DeAndre Swift and Rashad Penny, who's a big question mark injury wise. But they still have Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell, noted giant killer Boston Scott, and Kenneth Gainwell uh, as backs. So to me, that's just a reflection of how NFL coaches look at the running back situation, and more so general managers. And the Giants obviously know that, and they've said it over and over again. They know and they love Saquon, what he is and what he brings, and but they're you know you always hear players say, but there's a business side of things. Well, and there is, and unfortunately for Saquon Barkley and running backs, the business side works against them. So, and there's nothing you can do about it.
For sure. And so I said what Saquon should do. I think he should take the deal, take the money that he can get now, as much guaranteed as he can get now, even though it's not what he had hoped for.
Right.
Uh,
If he has another season like last year or one that's even better, he's a second year back from being healthy. If he has one that's even better, hey, somebody's going to pay him somewhere. If he duplicated last season, next season, he's going to probably get a 2 or 3 year deal worth, what he's looking for. He's liable to still be disappointed because of just the situation, just the market itself. Um, but if he goes and plays well, he's going to play in this league for a while. He's only 26 years old, and if he's a back that can, there's a lot of these guys that do fall off the cliff really quick at that position for obvious reasons. But if he, if he doesn't, he's going to make another 30-40 million dollars in his career.
and I guess for him, the frustration is, could he be tagged again? Which is possible, certainly. So there's certain things that they could work out and wiggle room that they could do there. But, again, I think he should take the money. If it's going to be 25, 26 practically guaranteed, um, then just take it. It's better than 10-1. Uh,
Right. It's funny we're talking about. Well, he's worried about being tagged again next year. But what would you say was 12? It would be 12.1 million next year, right?
yeah.
Um, and I'm not sure that he'd get 12.1 on the market. I mean, if the market continues to trend down the way it is, um, you know, who's to say he's going to get 12.1 next year? Or 12.1 next year on the open market.
Yeah, the nature of the
He got
position,
that this year.
the nature of the position is difficult for these guys right now. And so, like, what do I think the Giants should do? I think they should, for the most part, stick to their guns here. I mean, they have all the leverage. This phony, flimsy notion that he could skip the season doesn't really change anything. So they have all the leverage. I think that they should stick to what they're doing. And if Joe Shane has publicly said he's okay with Barkley playing the year on the tag, then fine. I mean, it's not his job to Joe Shane's job to bend just because Saquon Barkley and his agent misread the situation. I mean, yeah, they took a risk. They shot too high in terms of what they wanted, and then he got trapped with the tag. So let's see how it all plays out. There's a little less than a month to go, but yeah, I mean that pretty much we talked a lot about this. I think that kind of sums it up. There's still a lot of unknowns though.
Right. Um,
And
I'll throw this question out there. We can take this into another subject that is related. So it's probably not going to happen, but let's just say that Saquon does hold out, into the season. what? How would you describe the depth of the Giants running back situation? Do you think they would be able to handle that and be successful without Saquon Barkley?
No, I mean, and that's not it's not great. I mean, I guess that would be his leverage, I guess, if he had something to hold out for, which he doesn't, again, because all he can do is play the year on a 1 year deal. There's nothing he could really be holding out for. I guess he could say like, I want more on a 1 year deal, and you got to spread it around like all the loophole stuff we were talking about. But yeah, Matt Breida, Eric Gray, Gary Brightwell, like obviously not great. They committed $10 million to Saquon Barkley as their starting back for a reason. And the production warrants it in terms of him being your no clear number one back. Obviously, it's not a great situation, but like to me, it's like okay, if Saquon Barkley is unhappy about these disrespectful offers, like okay, say the guaranteed money. Like the whole notion that like these leaking information is some like oh it's awful. It happens all the time in the NFL. Like it's like come on, like oh it's like Casablanca, right, gambling or whatever that line is, right? That he's shocked and appalled that something so obvious is happening. Like it's part of the deal. You catch up. Like get your agent to do. And also, like I don't was anything being leaked from the Giants that really made him look super super greedy? I think he's just reading it that way.
I think it's just more his he he's not upset about that. He's upset about what the money is. I mean,
If they wanted to rub his face in it, they would leak. Oh, we offered a totally fair, guaranteed amount of money, and he turned it down because he wanted more. All right,
right,
that would be a shot.
right,
Um, so if the guaranteed money is disrespectful, let's hear it. Oh, we haven't heard it yet. So what does
right,
that do?
right.
So we'll
I was
yeah
gonna just get back a second. The one running back in the Giants room that really fascinates me, and if they, I don't know what happened if they increase his workload, but I do love the stat that Matt Breida did in his second season in the NFL, lead the San Francisco 49ers in rushing and total yards from scrimmage. He rushed for 814 that year. That was 2018, and had over 1,000 yards from scrimmage that year. And his career is fascinating too. He's got a 4.8 yards per rush for his career. Last year was 4.1. The times he played last year, he was really good. It was obviously very limited, more limited. Did he? Um, his touches have been going down for a few years. He only played in 9 games the year before, but in the limited amount of time he played, he was really good. And Gary Brightwell was very good in the game they lost to the Eagles last game of the season. Now I don't know what that means, but you don't read too much into that. But Breida does fascinate me. The combination of Breida and Gray um, might be better than people realize if they didn't have Saquon Barkley. And I'll leave it at that.
yeah. Breida's still just 28 years old and turned 28 in February, so it's definitely something to keep an eye on, especially if this lingers. But then again, maybe they get a deal done, and that's that. But we'll see. Till
That's what we're cheering for here as summer begins.
July the 17th, which is what, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, it was 4 weeks from yesterday. So we're sitting here June 20th. So yeah, 4 weeks from yesterday. So that's where they're at. In terms of this, we can just pivot and run down some of the other Giants' key positions here, and we'll stick with the offense, starting offensively. Obviously, everyone we talked about the running back situation there. Um, we can quickly dispense with the positions that seem, a little less notable. But so obviously, their tight end is obviously going to be Darren Waller, who's basically a receiver. Will be interesting to see where Daniel Bellinger factors in. He's gotten stronger, it looks like, which is probably a good thing because he's probably going to be doing a lot of blocking, right?
Yeah, you would think that he would be blocking a lot more. Um, Andy Bischoff made a point the other day, though. Obviously Darren Waller is going to be getting a lot of attention. Will that attention sometimes lead to Daniel Bellinger being wide open? Perhaps. The thing at that position that stands out to me is a year ago the tight end position was at this time was a disaster. It's like they had let Evan Ingram go to the Jags. Now with the Jags, who ended up having a very good season and got tagged himself. Um, but you looked at the Giants tight end group and you're like, who's going to produce from that group? and Bellinger had a good rookie year, but it still was not a lot of production from the tight end position receiving wise. Now you look at that room, and you got Darren Waller, obviously, chance to be 1,000-yard receiver if he can recapture what he had with the Raiders. You got Bellinger, a year older, who was one of the better rookie tight ends in the league, and and Lawrence Cager is obviously a very interesting guy, um, who, much like Waller, was a receiver and is now converted to tight end. If you're going to learn somebody, Waller's probably a good guy to learn from. So, but the point being is that the tight end room has all of a sudden become a very exciting place for the Giants.
Very much so, and obviously Waller is their number one target in the passing game. They desperately need him to stay healthy. We all know that, and um, that will be fascinating to see if he can. Has obviously had some durability issues in recent years, and again, as with all these positions, there wasn't really a lot of movement come in the spring. These were pretty informal practices, and we talk about our impressions of the spring. It's not like much will be decided. Obviously, in terms of the backfield, Daniel Jones. Obviously, it goes without saying, hugely important year. He just got paid $82 million for 2 years at least. He has some weapons around him. Again, it's not like anything that's going to happen in training camp is going to settle a quarterback battle, but it's this camp, year two for Jones in Brian Dable's offense, and let's see how he progresses. And really, it's obviously Jones is worth discussing, but all the pieces around him and how they're going to affect him, I think, are the most fascinating things about this offense. Whether that's Barkley's presence or lack thereof, Waller's durability or lack thereof, um, and this offensive line. The most fascinating piece, I think, is Evan Neal. Right? Can he pass block better than he did last year?
Absolutely. If he's not better, then they're in trouble.
Yeah.
But if he is better, um, you know, they could take off. I mean, if he has the kind of, and I think the comparison between Andrew Thomas gets overblown sometimes because they're different people and a little bit different position. But one point that has been made is that Evan Neal was a left tackle in college and had to transition to being a right tackle. It doesn't sound like it should be that difficult a thing to do, but it's probably not as easy as it sounds to do that. There are different movements and different directions you got to go, and so I'm sure there are some intricacies to it that we don't understand and are more difficult than. And the other thing with Evan Neal was he's I if you go back and look at even his Pro Football Focus grades, he seemed to be trending in the right directions around week 6, 5, 6, and 7 last year, and then he had the MCL problem against the Jags. And I remember talking to him about week 15 or 16, maybe even later than that, and he basically said that it was still, he was still dealing with it. It wasn't like a pain thing, but it was still something he felt. So was he entirely healthy all last year? He obviously regressed some after that. Had some rough games after that, but he's coming in here healthy. As you pointed out, he's the key person they need to really improve on that offensive line.
No doubt about it. He tweaked his pass blocking stance this offseason with help from Willie Anderson. The really, I guess, with the Bengals, he was legendary. He's in their Ring of Honor, I guess, right? And so Willie Anderson worked with, obviously, former offensive tackle, worked with Evan Neal, made his pass blocking stance more efficient, and we'll see how that plays out. Bobby Johnson, the Giants' offensive line coach, was totally fine with it. I mean, these were things he said that he and Neal discussed, and then Neal went and worked on it with Willie Anderson. So it wasn't like it was out of left field. The other intriguing piece on this line, again, we talked about the left guard situation. I think it will be Ben Madison. We don't need to go too in depth on that, but obviously John Michael Schmitz will be the center. We know it, and that's it. There's no position battle really there at all. I mean, we know he's going to be the center. He is known for his dead ball snapping, right? And so, um, how can he communicate? How well can he block? I mean, this is a big ask. I mean, people are looking at this like, oh, they have stability at center. They got this guy. He's a rookie. It's still going to be something to keep an eye on. I think throughout the year, even though he is a pretty steady dude, and we couldn't really glean anything out of the spring because of how limited contact is. There's no contact allowed, right? So like for the offensive line, it's really impossible to get a read on things. the preseason will be fascinating for John Michael Schmitz to see just how he's holding up to the speed of the NFL.
Yeah, the interesting thing about the center position is, so in the last few years, like Creed Humphrey came, I think he was just in his second year with the with the Chiefs, and is now the best center, and considered the best center, has moved ahead of Jason Kelsey as being considered the best center in the NFL. So he obviously made the transition very quickly. Uh, the, the the Ravens drafted Tyler Linderbaum in the first round um, last year, and he was considered one of the best centers. So that bodes well for the Giants, that it does seem as though really quality centers are capable of coming right into the league and getting up to speed and becoming very good players at the position. Can this guy do it too? We'll see. But he seems. I will say this: just his demeanor and his work ethic seems, from watching these OTAs and just seeing him after the draft, he seems like he has that type of mentality that he should be able to, at least the mental part of it, catch on quick.
And it's all about protection and playmakers for Jones. We talked a little bit about a playmaker in Darren Waller and obviously Barkley, and the protection there with the line. The receiver situation is intriguing. Obviously, it is clear as you wrote coming out of the spring that the top three, unsurprisingly, receivers right now are Isaiah Hodgins, Darius Slayton, and Paris Campbell, which totally makes sense, right? Like Jalen Hyatt's working with the backups. Again, he's a third round rookie. It's not surprising that that he's working with the backups. I think ultimately he'll have a small specific niche role this year. Sterling Shepard and Wandale Robinson aren't even practicing right now. Okay, so and then you have the wild card guys like Jamison Crowder again, who's probably a roster bubble guy. Colin Johnson is an interesting big bodied outside receiver who's coming off the Achilles tear. I wrote about him the other day, but he's not a lock to make the roster. And so um, right now it looks like, and this is not a surprise. I mean, Hodgins, Slayton, Campbell, their top three receivers, but I'd be interested to see what they get from Hyatt in camp, given the fact that Robinson's going to be recovering from his ACL still for a while because he got hurt in November. And what are you going to get from Sterling Shepard, given the timeline of his recovery, which was week 3 he got hurt. So, what do you make of the totality of that receiver room right now?
I think it is what people say is it's and you just use the word interesting. It's probably a good word to describe it. Their speed, more speed than they had certainly a year ago. Paris Campbell is one of the fastest players in the league. I think I saw a next gen stat from ESPN that he had at 22.1 miles per hour had the fastest play. I don't know how they figure these things out, much above my level of thinking, but um, was the fastest play of the year last year, run by Paris Campbell. He ran a 4.3140 at the combine when he was there 5-6 years ago, and still obviously has that speed. It's never. Last year was the first year he's healthy. Can he make a giant leap in his second year and stay healthy for a second straight year? That's a question. The thing that's been said about it, a good, looks like a good solid group, but without a wide receiver one, clear wide receiver one. I think that's a fair assessment of this group. Is there anybody in that group that could be a wide receiver one in 2023? Um, I if I was going to say, have to pick one of those guys and say he's the best chance of becoming that, for me it would probably be Paris Campbell. He was a highly touted guy coming out of Ohio State who, as I just mentioned, hasn't stayed healthy. And then I'd probably put Jalen Hyatt second on that list because we just really don't know how he's going to develop as a rookie. And some it used to be no rookie wide receivers developed in their very few developed in their first rookie seasons. It's happening more now than ever before. It'll be interesting to see if one of these guys can develop into Daniel Jones's favorite target. But I'm guessing that they're going to go another year without a 1,000-yard receiver.
Well, certainly as a from the receiver position, Waller is their de facto number one receiver, and so that will take targets away from the guys who are receivers by position name, and we kind of know what Darius Slayton is. Isaiah Hodgins, we'll see. I mean, he had a nice year last year, but far from proven over the long haul. So, bottom line for this offense, got to have Waller stay healthy. Got to have Neal pass block better, and obviously Thomas needs to be Thomas at left tackle, and John Michael Schmitz is a fascinating piece. And so defensively, we can start right up front. I mean, Leonard Williams comes into this year as an intriguing part of the defensive line that should be better against the run. Leonard Williams has always been pretty darn good against the run for all the inconsistencies he's had as a pass rusher. But they bring in Ashawn Robinson and Raheem Nunez Roches who to help out with the run. Their run defense better be better. It should be better. Will it be better?
Yeah, it has to be better. If it's not, then they're not going to ascend to the next level that they want to ascend to. And obviously, a Final Eight team in the NFL is nothing to sneeze at, which is what they were last year. But they obviously want to go beyond that this year. And they identified it. Joe Shane identified it the day after the season ended that they had to get better against the run, and signing guys like Ashawn Robinson, Bobby Okereke, I think that's right, right? Is that
Yep, Bobby Okereke, yeah.
Okereke? I think he's in there, and we'll get to the linebackers in a second. But and Raheem Nunez Roches, bringing those guys in was key. I'm kind of I'm kind of interested to see some of the young guys on this defensive line. DJ Davidson, Jordan Riley, and Ryder Anderson. I'm kind of eager to see how they've improved or if they've improved. DJ Davidson might not be ready at the start of the season. He's coming off an ACL, but and then Jordan Riley was just a big body that they drafted who they basically said he's a work in progress, but you can't just create a 6'5", 325-pound body out of nowhere. And that's a big, it's a comparable size to Dexter. So I'm kind of eager to see what the backup guys can do. The young backup guys can do too.
And kind of hovering over all that is the fact that Leonard Williams has an insane cap number. It's 32.26 because of the restructure last year. He's entering the final year of his deal. They're obviously not going to extend him, and so will they come to him and ask him to take a pay cut closer to the season? That's the interesting thing here. How hard do you want to squeeze the guy, right? I mean,
I don't think it's happening, and like just
no.
from listening to Leonard last week, I don't think it's happening unless the restructure includes an extension. That's the only way he's going to do that, and I don't blame him because he's a guy who gets out on the marketing and still makes some money at that position.
For sure, I think I agree. And when we talk about position battles, well, we'll stick up front, right? So Aziz Ojulari, Kayvon Thibodeau, they're going to run it back basically with those two guys as the starters, Ward and Zimenez as the backups. Not really anything different at the outside linebackers position. It's the same cast of characters there.
It really is, and at that position they need Aziz to stay healthy, and B Kayvon to elevate. To Kayvon said it himself. What's he need to do better? Needs to finish. Needs to get more sacks, more quarterback hits, just be more disruptive than he was last year. And if that happens, if he can take his game to another level, that'll go a long way to making this the kind of defense Wink Martindale wants it to be.
Somebody has to rush the passer as efficiently or close to it as Dexter Lawrence, because for as much as they do blitz, and they were not a great efficient pass rushing team last year, and that is including the great year that Dexter Lawrence had, and Wink Martindale likes to talk about how much they disrupt the quarterback, and yeah, that is true. But PFF had him 20th in pass rush last year, and that is a measure of efficiency, right? Because so if you're going to rush the passer a lot, or you're going to blitz a lot, of course you're going to get home. But there's obviously efficiency issues there that they need to improve on, and so they were 20th in pass rush last year in PFF, and they were 30th in coverage. Now injuries and attrition played into that coverage stuff, and we'll get to the secondary in a minute. But as you talk about the inside linebacker group and getting better against the run. Obviously, it was both those spots were revolving doors last year. Inside linebacker, they bring in Bobby Okereke, who will provide some stability there. But then we get to a really interesting position battle, and so offensively, I think maybe left guard is kind of sort of a position battle. Not really. There's not really a lot of like super fascinating position battles on the offense. Like who could maybe be like their slot receiver? Is it going to be Hyatt or Shepard? You kind of have to set aside Wandale Robinson right now. And Waller's going to play out of the slot a lot anyway. And so, but to me, when we go down the depth chart here, the other inside linebacker position, not a super sexy position, but Gerard Davis is going to be fighting for his job against Darian Beavers, who's coming off the camp ACL tear. So he'll be ready to go. Beavers start a camp. Didn't play last year as a rookie, but it's not like Davis is a Pro Bowler. So that's a really interesting, not oft talked about position, I think, for
Right. I
this.
mean, those guys are, they're not three down guys that are on the field on passing downs. So I think that's part of the reason it's not talked about a lot. But but there's definitely a competition there. Oddly, Jared Davis wasn't on the field the last couple of days of OTA, so I don't know. And the Giants don't have to reveal any injury things at this. Teams don't have to reveal any injury things at this point, and I don't know if he was injured or not. But he wasn't on the field the last 2 days of OTAs. And I think another guy who's probably in that mix is Micah McFadden. With Jared Davis not running with the ones, Micah McFadden was running with the ones quite a bit too. And Beavers still wasn't ready to run in those 7-on-7 type things either. So I think Micah McFadden, who he was the only, I think he was one of two guys who played every game of the regular season on defense last year, and then didn't play in either of the playoff games because they were obviously uh, liked what they saw from Jared Davis after he signed with them late in the season more than they liked from McFadden. But McFadden's a year older. He comes back. Is he stronger? Perhaps. But there is going to be some competition there at that position for sure.
Absolutely. McFadden struggled last year, so we'll see if he can play better and push for playing time there. We talk about obviously those guys necessarily are not the inside linebackers and not three down players, but as we transition to the secondary, yeah, like Deontay Banks going to be out there every down. Opposite of Dory Jackson, he's hugely important. We're presuming he's going to be the starter, and he will be hugely important piece. What the Sauce Gardner standard is so lofty. I think we should just be reasonable and not expect that. But what are reasonable expectations for him?
I think just to be a solid first year rookie player at that position. He's a first round pick, so I think you can, I think you can expect, him to play. Let's put this as the expectation that he plays to a little bit better level than they had at that position last year when it was a lot of rotating guys in and out of that position from the start, with Aaron Robinson being the starter at first, and then Fabian Moreau, Cordell Flott. It was the left guard of defensive positions last year, that the cornerback spot opposite Adoree Jackson. And even that became a revolving door with Adoree getting hurt on the ill-fated punt return against Detroit. So I think the expectation should be that Deontay Banks brings some stability to that position.
That's what they're obviously looking for opposite McKinney, who's entering the final year of his contract. So maybe Banks grows into the number one corner in year two. It's still very early to forecast that. And again, he was not a he was a 24th pick. He wasn't the fourth pick like Sauce Gardner, and he wasn't the first cornerback taken. So like let's take a deep breath and measure these expectations. The Giants do play a lot of nickel, and so when you're talking about corners, the nickel cornerback is a really intriguing spot in terms of how they could play that. Will it be Darnay Holmes? Will Cordell Flott take over that job? Or do they kind of play like a safety ish guy there? Like Nick McLeod has moved from corner to safety, but he played all over the defense last year, including some safety and a lot in the slot. Jerome Henderson, the defensive backs coach, was talking about this. They like to have versatile slot coverage ability, and it doesn't have to be the slot corner per se. But I think ultimately Darnay Holmes fighting for his job here, well, fighting for his starting job certainly.
Yeah, there we have some competition. That might be the most interesting competition of them all with Holmes, Cordell Flott, and Nick McLeod. And as a rookie, Flott was forced to play quite a bit last year. McLeod even more, who was basically a second year player who they had gotten from Buffalo. And a guy we haven't mentioned a lot, and we're going to get to safety, I assume, um, from here, but is Jason Pinnock, and we didn't mention him a lot in camp, but he's a guy who could be competing too in that safety role. I don't know necessarily slot, but um, so there was some competition for playing time in the secondary for sure.
Yeah, and Bobby McCain was signed to it wasn't a high guarantee contract, so there's nothing that says that Wink Martin he's not necessarily a lock to be an every down player. If one of these other guys pushes him, I think unlikely to be Dane Belton based on what we saw last year, but maybe he takes a leap. We know Xavier McKinney entering a contract year is going to be the hugely important free safety, just one of the pillars of the secondary along with Adoree Jackson. So McKinney did not have a great year last year. He needs to be better this year. I mean, that's even setting aside his hand injury, the ATV accident. So yeah, the Giants need some consistency above all else in this secondary in terms of performance, in terms of guys staying on the field, not having the attrition they had last year when they dealt with significant injuries to McKinney, Adoree Jackson, and Aaron Robinson, who is now Aaron Robinson pretty much an afterthought given the timing of his surgery. You're not going to be seeing him for a while. But I do think that slot corner spot, as you discussed, is going to be a fascinating one because of how important that role is and covering. I mean, you see how important it's going to be for the Giants' opponents to have to try to handle a guy like Darren Waller, right? So, there are really dangerous guys who play a lot in the slot all over the NFL, and that's
What
something.
what what would your prediction be right now for how the three cornerback slot set up?
I
Obviously,
think they will start Holmes to start the year, but we could certainly see some movement there. I think he will be the guy to start the year.
all right. I'm going to predict Nick McLeod
Yeah.
as
So
the.
yeah, Nick McLeod's a fascinating piece. I mean, because while he is moving to safety full time and will play a lot in the slot in that role because as Jerome Henderson said, they like to blitz the nickel back. Then they need someone to cover in the slot. Yeah, I mean, it's not like he didn't play any safety last year, Nick McLeod. I mean, you look at his PFF snap breakdowns, and he did. So that's what a guy like that who came in undrafted in the NFL is going to have to do that to stay relevant, be versatile. Um, and special teams matters too, obviously. Especially for position guys like Nick McLeod who can play special teams, Colin Johnson as a receiver. But in terms of exclusively special teams roles, the real one, I mean, everything is pretty much set except for, and we don't even have to get into kick return because it'll probably be Gary Brightwell. That role doesn't really even matter that much anymore. But the punt return role, where again, Adoree Jackson got hurt last year, the Giants had a newsworthy returner year because Richie James had the issues in Seattle. Adoree Jackson got hurt. Richie James now in Kansas City. So now the punt returner role which is still a significant role on special teams. You're not going to fair catch every punt. It's not going to be Adoree Jackson, but who's going to be the punt returner?
Well, I was just going to say, I don't think it's going to be Adoree Jackson either, but Adoree is still back there sometimes returning punts. It's like Adoree, I will say this, hasn't shied away from the idea. You know, he he could have been he could have been like, oh, I don't know why they put me back there in the first place, but he wasn't. It's like, okay, I got hurt, and, so be it. Uh, I guess it's something that he really probably likes doing. Jamison Crowder is the veteran guy in that role. But they don't really have a clear cut guy to do it. Khalil Pimpleton did it quite a bit in college and has been back there, but he's got to make the team first. Jaden Minkins is I think another guy who has done that role. Eric Gray did a little bit in college, but not a lot. There's no clear cut guy here, so I don't know who's going to end up with that role. But Richie James, as it turned out, had a pretty good season for the Giants last year, even though he lost three fumbles. But for the most part, was pretty solid, especially after he came back after losing the 2 fumbles in the one game again at Seattle. He rebounded from that as not only a punt returner but also as a receiver, and had a very good season. Now he's in Kansas City and has a chance to win a Super Bowl.
And will the Giants be in the mix for one? Probably not this year, but obviously the big, as we close this out and look big picture, the expectations, as we all know, are much higher. I mean, this is a team that went 9-7-1 last year, won the divisional, or made the divisional round of the playoffs after winning a wild card game in Minnesota. That was a pretty favorable matchup for them. They obviously are not on the Eagles' level. They weren't last year. It doesn't appear the gap is closed, and the schedule's really difficult for the Giants. It's just an uphill battle, I think, for them to avoid regression. We don't have to get into season picks and all that, but this is a really challenging year for this team because expectations are higher. The challenges are higher too, in terms of the schedule, in terms of the trying to replicate what they did last year when, they did get lucky at times. And so, win 10 games and you're in the playoffs these days, and they go 1-9.5 last year. And so we can run through the schedule later on, but that we just wanted to give you guys a rundown of where things stand. And now we wait for Saquon Barkley inside of a month till the tag deadline. We'll see what happens.
That's where we're at. I to just discuss the season. The division's just brutal. I mean, the Giants were a lot closer, even though they got to the final eight. They were only one game ahead of the Commanders at the end of the season. They were 9-7-1. The Commanders were 8-1. They were a lot closer to last place than first place, but that's more of a reflection of how good that division is. But it figures to be very good again with the Cowboys and Eagles at the top of it. The Commanders are a solid roster, I think, but not have a major question at quarterback. Um, and there's going to be teams that could be better for the Giants to compete for wild card with, examples being Detroit, the Packers. I think even without Aaron Rodgers could end up being a pretty good team. It's not like they're bringing in a rookie quarterback. They're bringing in a guy who's been studying the position for a while and has a chance to be pretty good. The Niners are going to be good. The Seahawks and the Rams are a team that could rebound for sure. They're only a year removed from winning a Super Bowl, so it's going to be tougher for them to get back to the playoffs. But I do think they are a better team too. I think they've improved their team.
Yeah, so we'll see if they can avoid regression. We obviously have a long way to go, and so in the meantime, we will be back with you guys closer to training camp at some point. We're going to take some time off, and recharge. And so, in the meantime, be sure to like, rate, review, subscribe to this whole podcast on your favorite podcasting platforms. So we appreciate everyone joining us. What's that?
It's free.
It is. And we appreciate everyone joining us as summer begins tomorrow. Enjoy your summer, which really training camp's going to be starting in the heart of summer. So enjoy it. The Giants will obviously have some open practices, so keep an eye out for those updates that we'll have for you guys in terms of when they do announce their publicly open practice. We'll definitely be, have a rundown of those. And so I would expect that in the next couple weeks or so, they usually announce what their publicly open practices will be. But keep in mind, they're going to go to Detroit to have joint training camp practices with the Lions in advance of the preseason game there. So that, unfortunately, for Giants fans, is going to cut into the opportunities to watch them in East Rutherford. That's sort of just how it goes when they have those on-the-road practices, as they did a couple of years ago in Cleveland, right, with Joe Judge. So, but yeah, keep an eye on that. Be sure to get in there if you want to go to training camp, and it should be a fascinating year for the Giants. But we will be obviously talking about it a bunch more in the not too distant future. So thanks, everybody. Have a good one. Take care.